What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. After a few years of hiatus, it is finally time to return to Ted Lasso land. So, without further ado, let's recap the first episode of Season 4 titled Home. A couple years after leaving AFC Richmond, Ted is still living in Kansas City and honestly seems pretty content being the assistant manager of a local grocery store, which means his work-life balance is pretty good. He's co-parenting with Michelle. Henry is getting ready to graduate elementary school. There are a couple hiccups, though. Michelle is dealing with stress at work. Henry is dealing with trouble at school, and Ted's mom, Dottie, is selling the house he grew up in. Oh, Henry also plays soccer, which leads to some longing looks from Ted. I wonder if he'll ever coach again. And then, of course, Rebecca, Keeley, and Higgins show up, because apparently you can never truly escape AFC Richmond. They've come to Kansas City with a pretty interesting offer. They want Ted to become the head coach of Richmond's women's football team. And honestly, I love this idea. It gives Ted a natural reason to return to Richmond, without just pretending the original story never existed, or some weird bridge of the story. There is a catch, however. Rebecca and Higgins are secretly dealing with some financial problems at the club, meaning this women's team isn't exactly coming from a position of strength. I think we'll see more on that later, though. Meanwhile, we get some fun side adventures during the trip. Rebecca discovers Kansas City barbecue and immediately proceeds to destroy every outfit she owns with barbecue sauce. I like the bit. I think it went on a little too long. However, this does lead her to buy the absolute show-stealing, bedazzled outfit from the local boutique, so I guess I'll take it. Higgins also has a little adventure of his own. He can't get into the American Jazz Museum because of a private bar mitzvah, so instead he puts his foot in his mouth more than a couple times, and eventually heads to the NBL Museum, where he learns about the legendary pitcher Satchel Paige. There's some good jokes here, and it's actually a surprisingly nice moment for Higgins. Keeley, meanwhile, becomes even more convinced that her women's team could be something special after visiting Kansas City Current Play, and of course their fabulous stadium. You know, there's some messaging here about believing, I think. I don't know, is that going to come into the fold again? Eventually, Rebecca, Keeley, and Higgins head back to London. And that's when Ted starts thinking about everything that happened during his time at Richmond. All the people he met, all the things he accomplished, all the things he left behind, and how he wants to live up to the way he saw his father, someone who truly cared about his job. So Ted texts Michelle, which actually turns out to be Henry because Ted didn't charge the tablet. Anyway, he asks how they'd feel about moving to London, and they're actually pretty open to it. So it looks like Ted Lasso could be heading back to where it all began. We also got a couple reveals during that sequence. Roy Kent has apparently won the FA Cup as manager of AFC Richmond. Jamie Tart has left the club, and Trent Krim is writing with the newspaper again. Of course, we notice it because we look at an article about Jamie leaving Richmond while praising him as one of the greatest players in the club's history. And I actually really like that ending because it reminds us that Richmond kept moving forward even after Ted left. It's a nice connection to the previous part of the series. Hopefully we'll see some of them later, but I don't hold my breath for long extended appearances. Of course, all these characters didn't just freeze when the original series ended. They've continued living their lives, and that's probably my biggest takeaway from this episode. I'm glad the show isn't immediately trying to recreate season 1. This feels like a different stage of Ted's life. He's older, Henry is growing, Richmond has changed, and now Ted has to figure out whether going back is actually what he wants. Spoiler, I think it is. It's interesting. Is it perfect? No. This episode is definitely slower than some of the original ones, and the moments where you can feel the show setting up where the season is going to go rather than telling a complete story. But for a premiere, it still works plenty well. It's funny, it's nostalgic without going completely overboard, and more importantly, I want to see what happens next. So for me, the first episode of Ted Lasso Season 4, I'm giving it a solid 8 out of 10. If you'd like to see more Ted Lasso recaps and reviews here on the channel, the easiest way is to watch and share this video. Help me see through viewership that you want to watch. Of course, liking also helps, subscribing, notification bell, commenting, all that good stuff. Any engagement on this video will show that more Ted Lasso should come here to the channel. We thank you for watching today's episode, and now that you've got some time, you can go refill that popcorn bucket.